Gone Global. Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. I joined UKIP, well, my card here says in 1992, because that was when it was the Anti-Federalist League. So for over a quarter of a century, I've been involved in UKIP and its forerunner. I have worked tirelessly for UKIP. I've spoken at 1,500 public meetings up and down the country. During those years, I've travelled hundreds of thousands of miles, and the aim was very simple. It was to take votes away from the establishment parties to force a vote in this country that would get us back our independence. And you could argue that in 2016 we had been pretty successful. One of the keys to that was talking about things that everybody else wanted to brush under the carpet, issues like immigration, which we were told, if you discuss that, it's somehow disreputable. I made sure that UKIP talked about tough issues, but we absolutely excluded anybody who'd ever been a member of the British National Party, the English Defence League. We wanted to make sure that when the abuse was thrown at us, it couldn't possibly be proved to be true. Now, I'm afraid that over the course of the last few months, under this leader, Mr. Gerard Batten, a lot has changed, and he seems to be pretty obsessed with the issue of Islam, not just Islamic extremism, but Islam, and UKIP wasn't founded to be a party based on fighting a religious crusade. And also obsessed with this figure called Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who is seen by some to be a great hero standing up and fighting for working class people, but who has a pretty suspect record and who brings with him a group of people, I'm afraid, amongst which we see scuffles, violence. Many have criminal records, some pretty serious. And all of it's been dragging UKIP away from being an electoral party into a party of street activism. I have warned, and I wrote 10 days ago, that this direction was catastrophic, particularly at a time when the great Brexit betrayal is upon us. Both the Labour and Conservative parties have broken promises that were made not just in the referendum, but in the general election as well. Things couldn't be better for UKIP, but unfortunately, we've gone in this direction of street activism and turning a blind eye to extremist politics. Many of the best people that I've worked with over those many long years have already left the party in the space of the last few weeks. There was one last hope that the party's national executive at the weekend would do something about this, would, pass a motion of no confidence in Gerard Batten ahead of what's due this Sunday. And this Sunday, there's going to be a march in London with Gerard Batten and Tommy Robinson as the speakers. That 2 days before the most important parliamentary vote of modern times. And the image that will give of what Brexit stands for is something that our enemies will use against us for perhaps many years to come. Damaging UKIP is one thing. Damaging the Brexit cause is even worse. And I, with a very heavy heart, given how much I've cared for this party, the people within it, have reached, I think, a very sad decision, certainly very sad for me, that I simply can't go on with it. I don't recognise the party as being the one that I helped to found and fought for all of those years. I believe the brand has been now so damaged, so tarnished, that it's not able to pick up and won't be able to pick up the political opportunity that's there, staring it in the face. And so with very great reluctance, I have, as of now, resigned my membership of UKIP, cancelled by standing order at the bank. I'm no longer a member of UKIP, which, hey, it's made up the biggest part of my adult life. It's a very sad thing to do. But there it is. It's done. Now, the government is in big trouble. In the course of the last hour, they have lost 3 votes in Parliament, including one where they have been found in contempt of Parliament. MPs approved a motion ordering for the immediate publication of the final and full legal advice on the Brexit deal.
The ayes to the right, 311. The noes to the left, 293.
So by 18 votes, the government lost. The government has been found in contempt of Parliament. And would you believe this has never happened in the history of the British Parliament? Individual MPs have been found in contempt, but the government never, ever has been. And to respond to this, the government have said that they will now release the legal guidance in full. They will do so tomorrow. Leader of the House of Commons, Andrew Leadsom, replied thus.
In light of the expressed will of the House, we will publish the final and full advice provided by the Attorney-General to Cabinet, but recognising the very serious constitutional issues that this raises, I have referred the matter to the Privileges Committee to consider the implications of the humble address.
And if that wasn't bad enough, a few minutes later, an amendment tabled by Dominic Grieve, a former Attorney-General, has passed, and this is where MPs accept that Parliament should have power over our future, not the government, if Mrs May's deal goes down and loses, and that has been defeated by 320 votes to 299. So it is a pretty catastrophic last hour for this government. Is this government on the verge of collapse? Or do you think that Mrs May's limpet-like qualities will see them through? If you do, call 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think the government has completely lost control. It's not going to get its deal through. It's all over. Text to 84850. And I wonder, what is going to be in that full legal advice? Do you think there could be some horrors lurking there that perhaps could prove fatal for the Prime Minister, given the things she's been saying here and indeed at the G20? Let me know. What do you think could be in that document? Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course watch us on Facebook and comment there too. Is this government on the verge of collapse? Terry is a new caller from Kensington. Good evening.
Hi, Nigel. I got the impression that the MPs will eventually vote for Prime Minister's Brexit deal, but that in the same time, shortly afterwards, the government, she will get a vote of no confidence. And that's just an impression I get from both the latter because of the chaos and the former because there is a sense that MPs are starting to have more bark than bite when it comes to their opposition. Some of them are as exhausted as the rest of the populace are.
Yeah, and we did see a sort of example of being marched up to the top of the hill and back down again the other week when we were told 48 letters were in, Terry, and it turned out it was 25, I think, at that moment in time. The only thing I would say, Terry, is, you know, we saw yesterday the current Attorney-General, Geoffrey Cox, telling us that unilaterally we cannot withdraw from this deal, and he talked about the backstop, if you remember, and that was taken to be quite bad news because previously the Prime Minister had given a different impression. All I can say, Terry, is whatever there is in this full legal advice, I'll bet you one thing, there's no good news for the Prime Minister, and there could be some horrors.
I agree. I'm as far away from understanding the inner workings of Westminster, but I tend to agree with you because this. When I read that, I felt this was a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, you still think the deal goes through and the government's... So you think the deal goes through and then she gets kicked out, yeah?
That's the impression I get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, I tell you what, your guess at the moment is as good as anybody's. Thank you. Reese is calling from Weston-super-Mare, a new caller. Good evening, Reese.
Hi, Nigel.
So, I mean, how much trouble is this government in? It looks like quite a lot to me.
I don't know, because my take is that the government still has a majority with the DUP. It is in trouble, but at the end of the day, the DUP and even Theresa May's MPs, for various different reasons, still want Theresa May, or at least the Conservative government, in power. I think they might try to remove Theresa May, but I don't think they'll try to remove the government, because those are two different things.
But the DUP, Reese, have said very strongly they are completely opposed to the withdrawal agreement. It places Northern Ireland in a different category to the rest of the United Kingdom, and they're not going to vote for it in any circumstances. That is her majority gone, isn't it?
It's the majority with the deal gone, and it's not necessarily the same thing as her government. I mean, I'm a very passionate Brexiteer, UKIP member, you name it. But I mean, I don't think this government is going to fall just yet. I think Theresa May and the government has a bit more time left in it, even if the deal does.
Well, you may be right, Reese, but the events of the last hour have not been very good for it, have they?
Oh, well, of course not. They've been pretty awful. Worse we've seen it in decades, I'd say.
I tell you who it's good for, Reese. I tell you who it's really good for. John Bercow. No wonder he was kept in position as Speaker when many thought he should have gone a week or two back. He, of course, was the one that allowed this debate, that allowed this motion to be debated about the government being in contempt. It's been a good day for him, Reese.
It's been a very good day for him. But he's the Speaker. He doesn't. Ultimately, the important point is the government isn't at the point of going yet.
All right, okay. No, Reece, they're not going quite yet, but they're in a lot of trouble. Thank you. On Twitter, I think the document says no deal would be better than TM's deal, says Ant. Well, I don't think it'll say that in exact words. What I'm looking for, Ant, particularly, is what the legal advice says about our ability to strike any new trade deals, because she stood up there at the G20 and told the world, we're going to be signing trade deals with lots of you. And I just do not believe that to be true, nor does President Trump either. I'm going down to Lymington to speak to Peter. Peter, can this government survive?
I don't think it can, Nigel, and well done for tearing up your UKIP card as well.
Well, I have to say, personally, a very painful thing to do, but I just felt I had no option, Peter.
Well, the party's just going a completely different direction to when you set it up, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't recognise it. So anyway, that's done. Let's get back to the government. They're far more important. So you, like me, sense they're in real trouble here.
Yeah, I do sense that, and I don't think the withdrawal bill will go through, and I don't think we'll get Brexit. I heard Tony Blair speaking, and he says there'll have to be another referendum. They call it people's vote, but it will be another referendum.
Yep.
And it should be as simple as we either remain or we completely leave.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. We just leave completely, and that's the vote that should be. And whatever the result of that is how it should be.
But why should there be a second referendum at all, Peter?
I don't think there should be, but I can't see what else is ever going to happen, Nigel. Parliament is completely against leaving the European Union. So many MPs against our vote, which they gave us in the first instance. Why did they even give us a vote if they're not going to...
I know, because they thought they'd win, Peter. They thought they'd win. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Leslie in Cheshire says, I'm furious with the Remainers discussing the legal issues, saying it's about democracy. What about the 17.4 million Leave voters? Well, Leslie, the irony about those who talk about democracy, those who talk about the need for a second referendum, are those who, for years, opposed us having the first referendum. But hey, there you are. The establishment doesn't like losing. It's been fighting every day since June the 24th, 2016, to force us to vote again. And today, I'm sorry to say, they got a bit closer to it. That's my view. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
The government is to release all of the legal advice it was given by the Attorney General about Theresa May's Brexit withdrawal plan after losing a motion of contempt in the Commons. The BBC has scrapped plans for a TV debate between party leaders over Brexit, saying it can't reach an agreement. And in the last quarter of an hour, Nigel Farage has told LBC he has resigned as a member of UKIP. LBC weather, rain spreading eastwards through the night with snow over Cumbria and the Pennines, lows of -1 in Scotland and +6 in the south.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and the M23 in Surrey remains down to one lane southbound between the M25 and Junction 9 for Gatwick Airport. A crane has fallen from the back of a lorry in the roadworks. Now, there are huge delays on the M25 either side of the M23 junction. Allow loads of extra time if you're planning on driving to the airport this evening. On the Essex stretch of the M25, there are clockwise delays from 28 at the A12 to 29 for the A127. The Hertfordshire stretch is also slow from London Colney at 22 to the A10 at 25. A demonstration in central London is blocking the Bank Junction, and the M60 in Greater Manchester is partly blocked by an accident anti-clockwise at Junction 5 for Princess Parkway, and on the trains, Southeastern are suspended via Herne Hill.
This is LBC.
Relax this winter with a Ford Motorcraft service for just £149. Now easier to book than ever with our new online service booking system, and save £10 when you quote Ford 10. Book now at ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer.
Recommended promotional price including parts, labour and VAT. Not available with any other offer. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're expecting unexpected guests this Christmas, pop down to Tesco, because chilled party food is 3 for the price of 2. That's everything from duck spring rolls to Tesco finest tempura prawns. So you'll be prepared for everything and everyone. However you do Christmas, everyone's welcome at Tesco. Cheapest item free, selected stores while stocks last, ends 1st of January.
You see the beautiful game differently and want a different way to bet. So when your gut says there are good odds out there, your smarts say you could get better on the Betfair exchange. Because you don't bet against the bookie, you bet against someone like you. Meaning the odds could be better and you could win bigger. The Betfair exchange, where gut instinct meets smarts.
Exchange customers pay up to 5% commission. Other charges may apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Apparently, there are still some people who say they won't apply for an Ocean credit card. That's amazing, because there's a credit limit of up to £1,500. Text so you keep control of your spending, and you can see if you'll be accepted before you apply at checkocean.co.uk without affecting your credit rating. But I know the real reason people say they won't apply, because they've already got one. To apply for an Ocean credit card, go to checkocean.co.uk. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender. 39.9% APR representative variable.
I hope you like it, love.
It's a boiler? You shouldn't have to spend your savings on a new boiler this Christmas. We're with you. That's why all British Gas boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit, nothing to pay up front, and a 5-year British Gas warranty.
Me and your dad got you a top-of-the-range one, so please look after it.
Search British Gas new boiler. Credit subject to status. Conditions apply.
A tale of good and evil. A warrior queen and her aging father fighting the army of the dead on level 7. Oh, great. The internet. Really? Right now?
There's never a good time for an internet disaster. But with BT Plus, let us know and we'll send you an unlimited 4G mini hub straight away to get you back in the game. BT, be there.
BT Plus, 80% UK availability.
Andre Rieu's new album, Romantic Moments 2. Masterpieces chosen by Andre with his heart. 16 of the greatest romantic songs now on this album. The perfect gift for the one you love. Romantic Moments 2 is available now.
Get through winter with a Ford Motorcraft service for £149 recommended retail price. Book online at ford.co.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Dramatic votes within the last hour in the House of Commons, and the government losing 3 times, including being found in contempt of Parliament. They're going to publish the full legal document tomorrow, not the precede one that Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, presented yesterday. Are they now on the verge of collapse? It doesn't feel good. Hi, Nigel. Could we be on the road for a no-deal Brexit? Because the government cannot pass laws, but members of the government do not want it to fail. Jamie in Heybridge, we have in place a referendum act. And if the government absolutely held firm, then yes, we would leave on March the 29th at 11 p.m. on a no-deal basis. There are 2 problems with that. One, I just don't believe this cabinet, the vast majority of them, have ever believed in Brexit and would allow for that to happen. And secondly, I think the Speaker, John Bercow, would find some way of reopening up that legislation. That is my suspicion, and certainly his judgment on whether this debate on contempt today, if that's anything to go by, I think we have a very, very partial Speaker of the House of Commons. Danny in Tottenham says to me, Nigel, the government's a complete disgrace. I grew up in Tottenham. I was probably the only one in the area voting Conservative, never ever again. And Philip makes the point, you know, imagine if the SNP in 2014 had won the referendum for Scottish independence, separation, and we told them, no, it's no good, you were lied to, you didn't understand what you were voting for, you're going to have to do it again. There would have been uproar. And Roy in Fareham says, Nigel, sorry to hear you've left UKIP, but you and the country must move on. The country absolutely needs to move on. It needs leadership, and it's not getting it from this government, and they are in trouble. I'm going to go to Graham in Hertford, a new caller to the show. Graham, good evening.
Evening, Nigel. I first phoned in to LBC when there was the Chequers proposal.
Yep.
And that was just incensed me. Yeah, and I'd listened, and I do listen intently. But the question and the point is, the government's got to go. She's got to go. I said that at the time, primarily because contempt of Parliament. Now, if somebody commits contempt of court,
yep,
they're banged up. All right. So this talk about, he might well be excluded, or there might be somebody suspended. Well, we're talking about the government here,
which is why, Graham, and nobody was actually named in this, which is why there are not going to be individual sanctions. No one's going to get suspended. But it is the first time in history that a government has been found in contempt. It is pretty serious.
I appreciate this parliamentary privilege, but that's about insults across the floor. But this is fundamental. This is our people's parliament. And if people have been found in contempt of our parliament, they should be put to book.
Well,
I'm absolutely incensed.
Graham, no individual is going to be put to book, but it does feel like a government...
Probably not. We're used to that, aren't we?
Well, quite. But, this has just happened. There's going to be no good news in this full legal advice. I can absolutely promise you that. And she may well, she may not, but she may well, next Tuesday, lose this vote by a huge margin. So they could be on the verge of collapse. And with it, Graham, we may well see Article 50 getting delayed and the prospect of a second referendum coming closer. How does that make you feel?
Oh, absolutely disgusted. But I will make one other little point, if I might.
Go on.
Parliamentarians, question time, PM's question time.
Yep.
When will a PM or a minister or even an MP answer a question properly? We've laughed for years on question time. I was before you guys, avid listener to and watcher of question time.
Yeah.
And it's become an art of black ferreting and fiddling around with words. Answer the bloody question, please.
Okay. Yeah, mind my language. Graham, I get the point, and I think millions agree with you. Too many career politicians not answering questions. Andy in Stafford's a new caller. Good evening, Andy. How much trouble are they in?
Well, good evening, Nigel. I think I get the feeling they'll probably be okay, but it's not looking good, is it, Nigel?
It's looking from... Do you know what? Forget one's political view. Just as a government, they do not now look to be in charge of events. They've had 10 ministers resign since she put that Chequers deal on the table. They are in real trouble.
Yes, it's disappointing the way it's going. The biggest concern, obviously, I voted to leave, and I do have concerns. It might not happen, because... everything is geared against it. The whole, and I never use this word really, but as you would call it, the establishment does seem to be, if you like, very much geared against it, doesn't it, Nigel, at the moment?
No, I promise you, Andy, that there is such a thing as the establishment, and it's big multinational companies and big banks and big politics, and they have been conspiring and conniving and working with Michel Barnier and many others, and they're absolutely determined to stop Brexit from happening, and at the moment they're doing rather better than the Leavers are for the moment. Andy, I thank you. Down to Dover to speak to Nathaniel. Nathaniel, hi.
Evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
So, this, your researcher asked, do I feel the government's on the verge of collapse? And I think that's the most understated statement I've probably heard this end of 2018.
Well, I'm called many things, Nathaniel. Understated isn't generally one of them, but go on.
Right, but this discussion about the legal advice, with getting disclosed, there's a reason, despite the fact how I voted in the referendum, that's been and gone. It doesn't matter how I voted, right? It is important that this information is published because then we can see how long they've been sat on their laurels doing as little as possible, trying to get themselves not held accountable to the voters to make sure that the right thing is done. Now, I feel quite depressed about this for very, very reasons. I'm a Democrat. I believe in people voting and they get their wishes.
Yeah. And we were promised, Nathaniel, we were promised explicitly, weren't we, that, however you vote, we will carry it out. And it's not happening, is it?
Exactly. I may not like, for example, my wife's choice of dinner, but if the family want it, I'm going to have to suck it up and get on with it. I know it's very, very different, but the point I'm relaying to, and sorry it's taken so long to get my words out.
Go for it.
The point I'm relaying to is this. I voted Remain, and you know what? It's been and gone. I don't care. I just want whatever's best now. But I'm telling you now, if it even goes to a second referendum, if even the Evening Standard said that the Europeans are trying to encourage us to withdraw Article 50 altogether.
I'm going to talk about that in a moment.
I'm telling you now, myself, in this generation, even as myself speaking, if this goes this way, I'm never going to vote again.
And Nathaniel, that is... No, look, I think on both sides of the argument, people are saying that the biggest democratic exercise in the history of our nation, an absolute explicit promise they would carry out our wishes, and they're ignoring us. Millions, perhaps, Nathaniel, will never vote again. That's bad news for democracy. Thank you for your call. On Twitter, I get a general election right now is the last thing we need. We need to show Europe we're serious and we want the facts. A second referendum is okay, in my view, provided we're given the facts to base it on. Well, Jen, the trouble with facts is, one man's truth is another man's lies, and we've seen that during and since the referendum too. But if the government does collapse another general election, what would it sort out? Because we might finish up with another hung Parliament. On Twitter, good to hear you've left UKIP, Nigel. It must have been a tough decision, but the right decision. UKIP are headed in an unhealthy direction, says Daz. Thank you, Daz, for that. Paul in Belfast is a new caller. Paul, hello there.
Hi, Nigel. How's it going?
It's going okay. Now, without the DUP, she is in very real trouble, isn't she?
Oh, I mean, she's already lost the DUP. I mean, that was always going to happen. That was beyond doubt weeks ago.
Right.
I'm amazed you didn't see that one coming. To be honest, but just to be completely honest, Nigel, total full disclosure up front. I mean, like most people in Northern Ireland, the vast majority, I wasn't for Brexit, so I just want to put that out there. And secondly,
it wasn't a vast majority, Paul, was it?
Well, it was about 65 to 70%. To be honest, it's a pretty big majority, considering that the Brexiteers won the vote. What was it, 52-48? I'd say it was a lot bigger than that. But anyway, and also to give you credit, Nigel, I have to hand it to you. I'm glad to hear that you've taken a moral stance about what's happening in UKIP at the minute. So all credit to you for that.
Thank you.
But I heard you earlier on saying that. There's this issue over a second referendum and whether it's beyond democratic or whatever. Were you not on record about 2 years ago saying that if it was a closed vote that ended up in a result saying that we should remain in the EU, that wouldn't be the end of the matter? And
I said it would be unfinished business, and maybe in another 20 to 25 years we might get a chance. We are being asked potentially to vote again before the result of the first referendum has even been enacted, and that, Paul, is a disgrace.
But that is based on a lot of disinformation and completely inaccurate information.
No. It's based on this.
And also, Nigel, I don't want to get distracted from the pointers. So there was one thing I wanted to point out, right? In 2016, according to the Office of National Statistics, there were 46-something million people who were entitled to vote in the referendum. Now, 12 million did not vote. Everyone that I have spoken to who didn't actually vote in 2016, and I've asked them the question, but why did you vote? I have had the same answer every time. I didn't know enough about it. I didn't know what the vote was about. I didn't know what the consequences were going to be. 2 years later, they now have a much better picture. Should they not now be entitled to a voice?
And if we vote to leave again, will Mr. Blair and Mr. Clegg and the others accept it? I don't think so.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think.
Paul,
and to be honest, if there was another referendum tomorrow and it was black and white, stay or go with no deal or stay in, and it ended up with the result that.
Paul, we've done it once. We've done it once.
Well, here we go.
But we may have to do it again. Paul, I thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 in time for the news with Tim Humphrey.
MPs have decided by a majority of 18 that the government is in contempt of Parliament for not revealing the full legal advice on Theresa May's EU withdrawal agreement. Commons leader Andrea Leadsom says the complete details will now be published. The BBC has dropped plans for a live TV debate between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn over Brexit this Sunday. Nigel Farage has told LBC he's resigned from UKIP, criticising the party's obsession with Islam and Tommy Robinson under the leadership of Gerard Batten. The LBC weather, rain spreading eastwards through the night with snow over Cumbria and the Pennines, lows of -1 in Scotland and +6 in the south.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Gerard Batten. He was invited yesterday to appear on the show and he declined. Instead, listening on the radio, clearly he tweets, Nick Ferrari on LBC, the propaganda war against UKIP is in fully cry. Well, Mr. Batten, you've been invited to appear at least 5 times, all the time. You've declined. So rather than sitting sadly, presumably in your back bedroom, tweeting, why don't you accept this, that you're taking the party for which I carry no brief whatsoever until you decided that Islam is a death cult. And that, Mr. Batten, is why the party finds itself where it is, which is pretty much done for.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Why are we so drawn to the sea? Where does it take you? Discovering distant shores with hidden treasures? Dining and dancing your way across calm waves? And indulgent service on board Queen Mary too? Escape the everyday, every day. Discover more at cunard.com.
Constipation relief has me singing with glee.
Strutting my stuff for the whole world to see.
Senecot Max, help me feel
natural Senna.
Double strength
Helped us back to normality.
It's how a
Wonderfully
regular life could be.
Senecot Max Strength is twice the strength of Senecot tablets. For short-term occasional use, always read the label.
The first snow on the hills. The family walk on Boxing Day. Winter's a time for making great stories. So start yours with Cotswold Outdoor. Right now, there's 20% off all fleeces and base layers. Discover all the kit you need for your winter adventure with 20% off fleeces and base layers from the best brands, including the North Face, Helly Hansen, and Icebreaker. Cotswold Outdoor. Find your local store at cotswoldoutdoor.com.
The biggest recorded marrow weighed 8.5 stone. You'd need a strong wheelbarrow for that. For a bit of veg, it's big. But it's not Euromillions big. This Tuesday, it's a huge £51 million jackpot. Euromillions. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Morning, Betty.
Come in, love. Oh, what on earth's that?
A new tablet from head office. I can get all of your health records up in a jiffy.
Oh, really?
Don't worry, your details are safe and secure. Speaking of secrets, have you...
John will never forgive me if he finds out that you make a better brew than him.
Whatever data you need to keep secure, we'll help everything stay on track with over 2,500 security experts working to help keep your business safe, day and night. Find out more at bt.com/LBC. BT, be there.
Apparently, there are still some people who say they won't apply for an Ocean credit card. That's amazing, because there's a credit limit of up to £1,500. Text so you keep control of your spending, and you can see if you'll be accepted before you apply at checkocean.co.uk without affecting your credit rating. But I know the real reason people say they won't apply, because they've already got one. To apply for an Ocean credit card, go to checkocean.co.uk. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender. 39.9% APR representative variable.
Escape the everyday, every day. With a little extra from us. Discover more at cunard.com.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
The government in trouble, calls to suspend Article 50, calls for a second referendum getting louder from politicians, not from the people, I don't believe. And purely coincidentally, you understand, a non-binding opinion was delivered today by the European Court of Justice's Advocate General. And this is because a group of Scottish politicians have asked some questions, ultimately, of the European Court of Justice. This is the first phase of it. And the judgment is very, very clear that the United Kingdom can, if it wants, unilaterally withdraw from Article 50. We can just say, sorry, chaps, cancel the whole thing, and hey, bingo, we just stay in. I'm sure the timing of this is purely coincidental. I wouldn't have thought that all the governments and authorities internationally are acting in concert, would you? Seems pretty obvious to me, and we know what the ECJ itself will decide within the next couple of weeks, so we could just bin it. This could come back to haunt them. Somebody pointed out to me today, well, what if the Italians, in this row with the budget, decide they're going to trigger Article 50, but now they've been told they can withdraw it whenever they want. They may have set themselves a very bad precedent. Back to this government, is it going to survive? Is it on the verge of collapse? And Theresa May is now up, having lost 3 votes earlier today. Theresa May is now up speaking in the House of Commons. Let's join her live.
Taylor review. So not just protecting workers' rights, but enhancing workers' rights. Now, fifth, the amendment, fifth, the amendment claims our deal allows the diminution of our security. Now, the Leader of the Opposition knows full well that if we fulfil the democratic decision of the British people to leave the EU, we can't have exactly the same rights as a third country that we currently have as a member. So the question is, which deal represents the broadest security partnership in the EU's history? And that is our deal. But what is he doing it? He is opposing it. 6, his amendment appears to reject the backstop, even though businesses, farmers and people from across the community in Northern Ireland, as we heard earlier, support this insurance policy.
I tell you what, we'll leave the Prime Minister there. She's going through amendment by amendment. I did hear some earlier parts of her speech where she said, we're taking back controls of our laws, money and borders. It's the same old stuff, trotted out time and time again, despite getting legal advice yesterday and fuller legal advice tomorrow, which makes absolutely clear that once we're stuck inside this new regime, if her deal goes through, there may be absolutely no way out unless the EU allows us. We could be stuck in perpetuity in the customs union rules. Doesn't make sense to me. Now, this democratic point is coming through very, very strongly. Doug on Facebook says, it was the first time I'd ever voted in 53 years. I now see no point in voting. Cheryl by text says, it worries me that so many people will not vote again. That was Cheryl from Skipton. And yeah, there are millions of people saying, we got involved in this, you've betrayed our vote. Interestingly, even a former governor of the Bank of England today saying the vote is being betrayed, Mervyn King. And this is all very, very bad news for democracy. A suspension of Article 50, a second referendum is very bad news for democracy. But I don't think those that support the European project, that want bigger forms of global government, I don't think they could care less. They just want to win. It's about power and money, and to hell with the little people. Let's go to Reading and speak to Stephen. Good evening, Stephen.
Evening.
So, is this government going to hang on? Is her limpet-like quality going to keep her there?
Yeah, I think this is going to go either two ways. Either the Conservatives are going to grow a backbone and get rid of her, and put their letters in, or they're all going to fall because they've got to amputate her from their government, really.
But if they all fall, Mike, Stephen, sorry, if they all fall, then that might mean a general election. I mean, how would that help it? How would that help anything?
That wouldn't help anything.
No, I don't think it would.
No, I don't think it would. An election right now, or in the next six months, is not going to help anything. We need someone in the front that can steer everybody to a proper deal that the government, not just the government, but the whole country's going to back. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the 52% were right to get out. I mean, I am a leaver. Yep. However, we do need to have someone there who can do that with conviction, and she's always been a Remainer. And I have to also say this: people keep going on about Gove as being the big lever that stayed with the government and trying to steer it and everything. To my mind, he's the fifth communist. He is the one that's stabbing everybody in the back. He is not a lever. He's not popular, is he, Stephen? I mean, are you one of those people that thinks if Michael Gove hadn't effectively killed off Boris Johnson's chances of leadership, that we wouldn't perhaps be in this mess? Possibly, yeah. I'm not sure Boris would have been as the best person for the job. Who is then? Come on, who is? Who is? Well, I actually prefer David Davis. Okay. There's my own. Okay, no, that's your point of view. Well, who knows, Stephen, what's going to happen in the next few weeks. Thank you for your call. Ian says, now you've resigned your membership of UKIP, are you starting a new party? No, Ian, I haven't done this to start a new party, but I will say this. There is a great big gap out there for a common sense party that wants to honour the results of Brexit. Someone's going to fill it. I don't believe now, with the UKIP brand as damaged as it is, that it can ever be UKIP. Nigel, the saddest news of the day, your resignation from the party that under your leadership was the best hope for this country's future. Oh, you're very kind and very sweet. Neil asks a much more interesting question on Facebook. Are you still a UKIP MEP or have you resigned from that? Well, I'm still leader of a group in the European Parliament. I'm still an MEP. Neil, there were a group of us about 6 or 8 weeks ago who, just increasing despairing of the direction the party was taking, were considering redesignating ourselves as UKIP Brexit as opposed to UKIP fanatical about other things. You have seen already some UKIP MEPs resign. I think you'll see a lot more between now and this Sunday. We don't want to be around if there's a march that's been advertised and put on with UKIP support that descends into violence and damages Brexit. We will have to redesignate in some way. But it is at that level, and I've sat since 1999, for UKIP in the European Parliament, and there's a lot of me today feeling, pretty sad about what's happened. I'm off to Woking to speak to Mike, a new caller to the show. Good evening, Mike.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay-ish.
Good. Well, I understand it's probably a difficult day for you, I imagine.
Yeah, not very easy, but no, not at all. But I tell you what, it's also not very easy for Theresa May, is it?
No, it's not. And I tell you, I have a bit of a theory here. My theory is that the reason why she doesn't want to have the advice published is fundamentally it's illegal. I mean, surely there's a principle here that any legislation that's brought in cannot be used to bind future parliaments.
Well, that's that's our constitution, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. If we end up in a position where we enter the backstop and there's no way out of it, then effectively you are binding future parliaments. Heck, you're binding future generations to this forever.
Yes, you are. You are. And you're also, Mike, signing up for the concept of taxation without representation, which is pretty important too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the Americans fought us off in a revolution. To
Boston
get rid of
Tea
that,
Party and all that. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm wondering whether this is my run of events. I think that the advice may be something along the lines of this will be struck down by the Supreme Court. But of course, there isn't time for any kind of legal follow-up because we're supposed to be leaving at the end of March.
Yep.
So I think the government is trying to cover this up to try and get this rammed through Parliament, get it voted on the pretext that it can go through. There can never then be a legal appeal because there isn't time. And what will happen is if something in this effect in this report suggests that it is illegal, then by definition the MPs cannot vote for it and the government's finished.
Right, and then what happens then?
Well, then, well, who knows? I mean, if the government's gone, we're going to need a new government, aren't we?
Which would mean a general election.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these scenarios, Mike, you see, to me, all of these scenarios point to, and by the way, I don't think the government is just going to say, oh, we revoke Article 50, we're not leaving. That isn't going to happen. But what I do think, I tell you what I think, Mike, is the most likely situation here, and that is because of the mess that everything's in, we finish up with Parliament wanting to suspend Article 50, to delay it for another year or two. And I hope it doesn't happen, but that looks to me, Mike, like the most likely outcome of a Parliament that just does not want Brexit really to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's probably going to be the situation. This is just going to be kicked into the long grass. But then, how do we move out of the limbo from there? I mean, I can't see a way out of this for a Conservative government. Actually,
it's a mess, Mike. No, well, I don't know the answer either. Thank you very much indeed. On Twitter, Farage's comments tonight are ridiculous. How can a referendum be anti-democratic? Well, the last referendum, many people didn't want. The same one's calling for a second one. Ridiculous. Now that people know what Brexit looks like. No, they don't. We've got Theresa May's Brexit. Instead of the lies by Boris Gove Davis, give us a vote. What are you frightened of? Well, Peter, you talk about lies. We've had 50 years of lies from the establishment about what the European Club was really all about, including, of course, Nick Clegg saying there won't be a European army in a live LBC debate. Hey, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 6:45 and time for the news with Tim Humphrey.
MPs have voted to fine ministers in contempt of Parliament over their refusal to publish full legal advice about Brexit. The leader of the House says the government will now publish the guidance in full. The BBC has dropped its plans for a live Brexit debate this Sunday, saying it can't reach an agreement. LBC weather, rain spreading eastwards through the night with snow over Cumbria and the Pennines, lows of -1 in Scotland and +6 in the south.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise tonight, and long delays for Surrey with the M23 still down to one lane southbound between the M25 and Junction 9 for Gatwick Airport after a crane fell over in the roadworks earlier. There are huge delays on the Surrey stretch of the M25, either side of the M23 junction. Allow plenty of extra time if you're planning on driving to Gatwick Airport this evening. On the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25, two lanes are shut clockwise with an accident before London Coney at 22. In central London, a demonstration is blocking the Bank Junction and causing long delays, and an accident in County Durham's causing queues southbound on the A1M towards 61 for Boburn. Finally, for the trains, 45-minute delays on South Eastern between Victoria and Orpington as a train's broken down.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Could things get any worse for Theresa May? 3 defeats in the Commons today, unprecedented. Could this be the beginning of the end of Brexit?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Drivers, this should raise a smile. When you're out driving this winter, it's important to know that you can trust your tyres and brakes to keep you safe. That's why at QuickFit, we'll check them both for free. For peace of mind, book online or head down to your local QuickFit today and drive away happy, whatever the weather.
This
This is the sound of the changing of the guard, Buckingham Palace, London. Only a left away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
The biggest recorded marrow weighed 8.5 stone. You'd need a strong wheelbarrow for that. For a bit of veg, it's big. But it's not Euro Millions big. This Tuesday, it's a huge £51 million jackpot. Euro Millions, amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Right, so I've corrected that typo in the contract on page 3.
Perfect. I've had a read through everything else. It all looks good. Well done.
Great. I'll print a copy and put it on your desk to sign.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Shh, it's starting.
Sorry. Got to go.
Okay. Enjoy the show.
With all the technology your business needs to work flexibly, combined with the UK's largest Wi-Fi network, we'll help everything stay on track no matter where your working day takes you. Find out more at bt.com/LBC. BT, be there.
Glasses for dogs, an alarm clock on wheels, a fork and knife rolled into one. Surprisingly, all successful business ideas. Office Outlet is obsessed with supporting businesses and has everything you need to start and grow your idea. And if you enter the Office Outlet Big Ideas Fund competition, you could win 6 months office space, one-to-one mentoring, £5,000 cash and more. To apply, visit officeoutletbif.com. Office Outlet Big Ideas Fund. Create something special.
I hope you like it, love.
It's a boiler? You shouldn't have to spend your savings on a new boiler this Christmas. We're with you. That's why all British Gas boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit, nothing to pay up front, and a 5-year British Gas warranty.
Me and your dad got you a top-of-the-range one, so please look after it.
Search British Gas New Boiler. Credit subject to status. Conditions apply.
The first snow on the hills. The family walk on Boxing Day. Winter's a time for making great stories. So start yours with Cotswold Outdoor. Right now, there's 20% off all fleeces and base layers. Discover all the kit you need for your winter adventure with 20% off fleeces and base layers from the best brands, including the North Face, Helly Hansen and Icebreaker. Cotswold Outdoor. Find your local store at cotswoldoutdoor.com.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
For those catching up later with the programme, I'm getting texts and tweets. Why have you decided to leave UKIP? Well, go to lbc.co.uk and you can see what I said at the top of the hour and what my reasons, sad, reluctant, but I think correct reasons were. So, this government is in all sorts of trouble. It's lost 3 votes in the House of Commons so far. This evening, it's been found in contempt of Parliament, which no government has ever been before. And what I'm getting back from you, from a lot of you, is a real complete cynicism about governments and voting. I haven't voted since Maggie was in. I voted for the first time in the 2016 referendum. I will never vote again if our Parliament accepts Mrs May's deal. Alex from Stockport. Rudy on Twitter says, I've just heard that some Brexit voters feel so betrayed by the government that it's put them off voting for good. Hallelujah, says Rudy. Well, Rudy, really? Really? Do you actually want to see our democracy traduced because you think you might then win a second referendum? Is that what people fought and died for in huge numbers? I don't think so. Let's go to Vancouver and speak to James, a new caller. Hi, James.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Good morning to you, as it must be over there.
Yeah, it's pretty cold over here.
I bet it is. I bet it is. So, James, watching events from afar, can Mrs May possibly survive?
I really don't think that's going to happen. Just 'cause it's amazing to me because she's just totally given in to like every single point that was put forward by the people. And
Barnier, particularly.
I just don't understand because I was actually reading through the document, and there's some very, very troubling stuff in there. Can I give you an example?
Give me one, yeah.
It says under no circumstances can the UK give lower tariffs than the EU. It just seems to me like they're very, very afraid of competition.
James, that word. Competition. It's a word we never hear from our politicians anymore. Everybody's so obsessed with level playing fields and all our rules and regs being the same as the rest of Europe's. James, I'm pleased that you mentioned it.
I'm sure you know, Nigel, that there's actually a clause in the EU that says it's called the level playing field clause. Clause. Where basically every other country, even if they have a terrible economy, terrible work ethic, doesn't matter. They all have to abide by the same rules as everybody else.
Absolutely. This is the theory of the single market and with customs union. And James, we're going to be trapped in this because of what Theresa May has negotiated. Do you want to see her go?
To be honest with you, I would prefer someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg in, because the thing is with Theresa May is that she comes across as a mid-level bureaucrat and Jacob Rees-Mogg comes across as a statesman.
Well, you're being quite polite about her, I think, but hey-ho. James, tell me something. Are you a regular listener from Canada?
Yeah, I listen to you whenever I can when I'm at work.
Terrific. James, thanks for calling in. Thanks for following us. Do you still get a Christmas card from Juncker and Verhofstadt, Nigel, says James. No, I might get one from Juncker. Verhofstadt, not a chance. And I did actually, by mistake, I think, get one from Herman van Rompuy, which I've kept. But hey, laughable. They can't even agree on setting up a debate about Brexit. So what chance do we have of her finishing the job, says Linda. And Linda, I find it extraordinary that the idea of there being a television debate this Sunday between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn has reached total stalemate, so much so that it's been called off, which I think, frankly, is pretty pathetic of the two of them. Lauken from Stevenage says, I'm fed up with people saying we didn't know enough in the referendum. We've had 40 years of the EU to base our opinion of them. Yep, that is a perfectly fair point. Hi, Nigel. Never mind the government being in contempt of Parliament. Right now, Parliament are in contempt of democracy. Beautifully put, David. That is how millions are feeling. And some, David, are standing up and wanting to fight. But some are beginning to think the whole democratic system in this country isn't worth a light. And that is bad news from every perspective. Aidan is calling from Bushy. Good evening, Aidan.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm all right. Now, Mrs May has survived, Aidan. 10 ministerial resignations, crisis after crisis, threats of 48 letters. I mean, all sorts of disasters. And this woman survives. Is she going to survive this tonight and perhaps losing this vote next Tuesday by possibly a really big margin?
I think she can survive, but we will know next Tuesday night. So what will happen is that the government won't fall because they won't enact the six-term parliament and have a vote. Mrs May will either then go back and say, I'm staying as PM, I have to get this changed, or it will be no deal. It will be an either-or to the EU. She'll either come back like Boadicea and then basically lay the law down and go for a no deal. But at least she's travelling around now trying to do her best. She can then say, as she's always said, no deal is better than a bad deal.
Yep.
And then all these vultures sitting behind her, these Weasley people like Gove and Johnson, are waiting. They are waiting for the extra 1 or 2 letters that are required. My understanding is 47. They will topple her. So her choice is either to go hard with the EU or get voted down, and then someone like the two Brexit secretaries, either of them I think are fairly good.
Rob
need to
or Davis,
new view and go back to the EU.
All right. Well, yeah. I don't know what you make of the new Brexit secretary. Nobody ever heard of him, but hey, Aidan, are there any circumstances in which Mrs May comes back from Brussels and says, right, I accept that the deal I've negotiated isn't good enough. Brussels won't bend. We're now going to leave on WTO rules. Do you see any circumstances in which she could do that?
Yes.
Interesting.
That's something that she could do. She could say, I've tried my best.
She could.
To appeal to the country.
She could.
And then she could say, we are now going to leave under WTO. Northern Ireland is a sham. The WTO have I think it's Article 20 that says as long as within a 10-year plan, you have a plan.
Is it Article 24 or whatever it is? Yep.
So she can, but we all know next Tuesday night, are the vultures going to pull her down or is she going to actually step up?
Right, well, Aidan, we'll wait and see, but you make the point she could do something quite dramatic. I've got time for one last very quick caller. Richard in Bermondsey, good evening. Richard, hello. No, He's not there. Never mind. Ron says the Tories need to find some gumption to oust Theresa May, or they're going to get Corbyn in at number 10. And I have to say, Ron, I've been thinking that for a very, very long time. Nigel, surely, if there is something unlawfully contentious to come out of the legal advice tomorrow, Mrs May has to fall on her soul or face the collapse of a government and risk a general election, says Sean in Suffolk. Sean, I've been feeling over the course of the last hour and a half that there is a real risk that there's something in this full legal document that directly contradicts what she's been saying, not just to us in this country, but to the G20 and the other leaders. And it may well be around the issue of trade deals and our ability, or otherwise, to do them. Let's wait and see. Either way, a rotten day for the government. Bit of a miserable one for me too. Do you know, I only had 2 hours sleep last night. I was busy doing things and trying to make my mind up, and I'm feeling a bit knackered and a bit sad about the UKIP thing. But hey, life goes on. And I think, I'll tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go for a beer. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow evening at 6. At 10 tonight is Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Going for a beer. That, I think, is the least surprising thing you've ever said in
and
your
it may
whole
not
career,
be a
mate.
mistake.